All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going on a little adventure, a journey, if you will.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Yeah, to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka in 2025, to be exact.
Excellent.
So our mission today is to kind of break down this traveler's experience and pull out the key takeaways, the golden nuggets.
Right, take this boots-on-the-ground perspective.
Exactly.
And see what we can apply more broadly for anyone, thinking about planning a Sri Lankan adventure. Well, one thing that struck me was how quickly some common travel expectations were pleasantly subverted. They flew with Sri Lankan Airlines, and they specifically mentioned the hospitable staff.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, which, isn't always a given. It kind of suggests a welcoming culture right from the start.
That's a great point. A positive first interaction can really set the tone.
Definitely.
And then there's the first taste of the local food. They said it was pretty good.
Pretty good? What does that even mean?
Yeah, it leaves you wondering, right?
Totally. Was it subtly different from what they expected? Maybe a gentle intro to Sri Lankan flavors?
Right? It makes me curious about how their culinary journey evolved over the whole trip.
It really does.
And then, that airport immigration experience, it can be a real source of stress for travelers.
Oh, tell me about it.
But for them, it was remarkably smooth and fast. In and out in 5 minutes with friendly officers.
Wow, that's amazing.
You can almost feel their excitement building for their month-long stay.
A whole month.
After such a positive start.
That's the way to begin a trip.
It is, yeah. And I'm particularly excited for this one. I've always been curious about Sri Lanka.
Really?
Yeah, never been. And reading through this listener's account, I gotta say, the first thing that struck me was just the beauty. This traveler was absolutely blown away by the scenery.
I can imagine. It has a reputation, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Especially the central highlands around Ella.
Yeah.
Area. They described it as really mountainous, amazing for walks, tons of waterfalls.
Wow, sounds idyllic.
Totally postcard perfect. And the thing is, apparently you can find really affordable places to stay there that still have these incredible views.
No kidding. So you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And the beauty doesn't stop there. I mean, for such a small island, Sri Lanka really packs in a ton of diverse landscapes. You got mountains, beaches, plains. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, they call it the Pearl of the Indian Ocean for a reason.
Oh, I see why. And all that stunning scenery around Ella, it comes with an added bonus: wildlife. This traveler mentioned the possibility of seeing, get this, leopards.
Leopards in the wild?
Yep, elephants too. Plus, all sorts of monkeys and mongoose just roaming around.
That's incredible.
I know, right? They even saw signs for wildlife crossings, which just shows you how much nature is part of everyday life there. And apparently, Sri Lanka's got a bunch of national parks you could spend weeks exploring.
It makes sense. I mean, with all those different ecosystems you were talking about, it's bound to be a haven for all kinds of amazing creatures.
Totally. And that's what I love about this traveler's account. They did this whole loop around the south of Sri Lanka, and each area they visited had such a distinct feel. Like Marissa, they described it as having this mini Bali vibe, which I thought was really interesting.
Oh, mini Bali. So surf culture.
Yeah, I think so. They mentioned surf shops, hipster cafes, lots of vegan options.
That makes sense. So it's catering to that younger, more, I guess, international crowd.
Yeah, definitely had that feeling from their description. But then moving east to Yala National Park, it's a total shift. Flat plains, bushland.
Oh, wow.
They said it felt like being on safari in Africa.
Fascinating how the landscape changes so dramatically.
It really does. And then you head back west to Ella and bam, those misty mountains and the waterfalls again. And it's not just the natural landscapes that are different. Even the cities have their own vibes. Kandy, for example, felt distinctly like a city, bustling and energetic.
I see. A change of pace from the more laid-back coastal towns.
Right. And Colombo, the main city, surprisingly had this non-touristy feel. A lot of travelers head straight out to other regions. Colombo retains a bit more of that local authenticity.
That could be it.
And then there's Negombo, right by the airport, which sounds like your classic seaside town, nice restaurants, comfortable accommodations.
A good spot to unwind before or after a long flight.
Exactly. So yeah, lots of variety packed into this one little island.
Sounds like it. It's amazing how you can go from beaches to mountains to bustling cities all in such a short space of time.
It really is. And speaking of variety, we got to talk about the food. I mean, Sri Lanka has this incredible reputation for its cuisine.
Yeah, I've heard great things.
And this traveler did not disappoint. Tons of rice-based dishes, those delicious rotis.
Rotis, love those.
Oh, yeah. Those classic Sri Lankan flavors.
It's making me hungry just thinking about it.
Me too. And they specifically mention that the authentic Sri Lankan food you get in Sri Lanka is on another level compared to what you might find elsewhere.
It's always different experiencing a cuisine in its place of origin. The ingredients, the traditions, it all comes together.
Absolutely. Now, let's move on to the people. This is something you consistently hear about Sri Lanka, the incredible friendliness of the locals.
It's so important, that feeling of warmth and welcome when you travel.
Totally. And this traveler really emphasized how helpful everyone was, from hotel staff to random people on the street.
That's wonderful to hear.
They even shared this quote. Someone said to them, "World people, welcome to Sri Lanka. I hope you welcome too."
That's so heartwarming. It really speaks to their hospitality.
It does. And now let's get practical. For anyone thinking about budget, Sri Lanka seems like an absolute winner. This traveler said it was one of the most affordable places they've ever been.
That's good to know. We all love a good travel bargain.
Right. We're talking decent double rooms for $20 to $30 a night.
Wow, that's amazing.
I know. And taxis and tuk-tuks, like $1 to $5 for rides that can be anywhere from 10 to 40 minutes.
Incredible. So you can really stretch your travel budget there.
Oh, absolutely. And the food, as we mentioned, can be super affordable, especially if you're eating local. The traveler actually said that the cheaper local meals were often the better ones.
That's a great tip. It always pays to venture off the beaten path, both for your taste buds and your wallet.
So true. Now, how do you actually get around in Sri Lanka? Well, you've got your usual suspects: trains, buses, tuk-tuks, private drivers. The traveler's big recommendation: take the train at least once.
For the experience, I imagine?
Yeah, it's true. And apparently the views are spectacular.
Nothing beats a scenic train journey.
Totally agree. Buses, on the other hand, weren't as highly recommended. Hot, crowded, potentially a bit stressful, especially with luggage.
Yeah, I could see that.
So unless you're on a super tight budget, maybe skip the bus.
And all about weighing those pros and cons, right?
Exactly. Good point. Now, what about the weather? It seems like the humidity wasn't as bad as this traveler expected, which is always a nice surprise.
Yeah, humidity could be a deal breaker for some people.
For sure.
It's good to know. I'm definitely a sunshine kind of traveler.
Me too. They mentioned nice temperature variations, cooler mornings and evenings, sunny and drier during the day. So pretty ideal.
Sounds like it.
Now, a quick note on language. It seems like English is pretty widely spoken, at least to some degree, which is good news for many travelers.
It definitely makes things easier, especially if you don't speak the local language.
Yeah, it makes communication smoother, from booking hotels to ordering food. So that's a plus. Finding high-protein food that wasn't rice-heavy was apparently a bit of a challenge.
Maybe not a paradise for fitness enthusiasts?
Perhaps not, though they did say they could be wrong about that. Maybe there's a hidden gym scene we don't know about.
It's possible.
Well, they were practicing a couple of basic Sinhala phrases.
Oh, cool.
Tuti for thank you.
Tuti.
And ayubowan, which is like hello or a general greeting.
Ayubowan.
Not bad, not bad. I think we need to work on our pronunciation a little bit. But the effort is there.
The effort is there.
Yeah, and that's what counts. It shows a willingness to connect with the local culture.
Definitely. Okay, so beyond those pleasantries, the practical aspects of, being in a new country start to surface.
Like what? Well, think about airport logistics, the things you have to sort out when you arrive.
Oh, yeah.
And here's a vital piece of info for anyone even considering a trip to Sri Lanka.
Okay, tell me.
You need to complete an e-tie application before you fly.
Before you fly?
Before you even get on that plane.
Got it. That's definitely one to tick off the pre-trip checklist.
Absolutely crucial. No one was surprised like that at the gate.
No, you do not. Now, what about getting local currency?
Yeah, they mentioned the busy luggage claim a familiar travel scene, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then the need for cash ATMs were a bit hard to find initially, so they were even considering using the currency exchange.
Yeah, figuring out the local banking situation can be a bit of an adventure.
It always is. But they eventually found an ATM at a Bank of Ceylon branch.
Okay.
And this is where a crucial tip emerges.
Oh, I love a good travel tip.
They withdrew 100,000 Sri Lankan rupees.
100,000?
Sounds like a lot, right?
It does.
But it's roughly $335. Can you imagine the sheer volume of bills?
I'm picturing it now, a big stack of colorful rupees.
It really gives you a sense of the local economy in a visual way.
It does, and hopefully they had a big enough wallet.
Right, and here's the heads up they shared about the ATM.
Okay.
It dispensed the cash before releasing the card.
Oh, wow.
They almost walked away without it.
That's easy to do. You're so focused on the money.
Exactly. So pay attention, listeners, when you're at those ATMs.
Definitely a valuable tip. Now, did they mention anything about the Upis themselves?
They did. They took a moment to appreciate the banknotes, the images of tribal people, the elegant designs, the vibrant colors.
It sounds like the currency itself is a little window into the country's culture.
It does. Know about Independence Square itself.
Tell me.
It holds a lot of historical significance.
Okay.
Sri Lanka gained independence from British rule in 1948, and this square is a powerful symbol of that.
Ah, a place of national pride.
Exactly. There's a monument to Don Stephen Senadeyaki, the first prime minister.
The first prime minister?
He's considered the father of the nation, credited with the country's early economic prosperity.
Interesting.
And behind the monument is the Independence Memorial Hall, a beautiful example of Sri Lankan architecture.
Oh, tell me more about the architecture.
It's inspired by the Kingdom of Kandy with these detailed ornamental columns and an overall elegance.
I can picture it now.
They even spotted the Lotus Tower in the distance, which we'll get to later.
Okay.
And surrounding the square are these lion statues.
Lion statues. What's the significance there?
They often represent strength and sovereignty, and there's a definite sense of discipline associated with the square.
I see.
And apparently the interior view of the hall is breathtaking.
Wow. Sounds like a must-see.
Definitely. From there, they went to a more relaxed public space, Vihara Mahadevi Park.
Okay, little change of pace.
And their first reaction was the crows.
Crows?
Tons of them.
Really?
Apparently they're quite noticeable there.
Huh. Interesting. Now, does this park have any historical significance?
It does. It was originally named Victoria Park during British rule, but was renamed after independence.
Makes sense.
It's the largest and oldest park in Colombo, and it was even used by the British Army during World War II.
Wow, so it's seen a lot of history.
It has, and they described it as having a feel of a UK park in some ways.
Oh, really?
But with those added tropical touches like flying foxbats and palm trees.
So a blend of the familiar and the exotic.
Exactly. The next morning, they set off on a 27-minute walk to Gangaramaya Temple.
27 minutes. That's a decent walk.
It is, and it surprised them how walkable Colombo turned out to be.
Really? Because I think a lot of people have this preconceived notion about South Asian cities.
Yeah, like crowded streets, pollution, difficult for pedestrians.
Right, based on experiences in places like India, maybe.
Exactly. But they found wide sidewalks, a pleasant sea breeze.
Nice.
And a surprisingly relaxed atmosphere despite the city's energy.
That's refreshing.
They even noted respectful behavior from drivers and pedestrians at crossings.
Wow, that's impressive.
And then they arrived at the Gangaramaya Temple, which sounds like a sensory overload in the best way.
Okay, tell me about it.
So there's the sound of prayers being broadcast from speakers.
Okay.
And then you see elephants just near the entrance.
Elephants in the city?
Yeah, they even got to feed one of them bread and bananas.
Wow, that's an unexpected encounter.
And of course, they had to remove their shoes to enter, and the scent of incense was in the air.
I can practically smell it.
And they met other travelers there, too.
Oh, cool.
From India and Poland.
So it's a bit of a melting pot.
It seems that way. It had this museum-like atmosphere.
I see.
Hundreds of Buddha statues, gold Buddhas, the temple tower.
Sounds visually stunning.
It is. And despite being in the city center, they described a peaceful atmosphere.
That's nice, a little oasis of calm.
Yeah, the interior was huge, filled with vibrant figurines and colors.
Wow.
They saw a Bodhi tree, a famous Buddhist tree for prayer and meditation.
I've heard of those.
The details in the architecture were intricate.
Sounds like a place you could spend hours just taking it all in.
And they concluded that the temple represented Indian, Chinese, Sri Lankan, and Thai influences.
Wow, a real fusion of cultures.
It really is. And there was even this lighthearted moment about the elephant statues.
What happened?
Apparently, they're very realistic, and there's a local superstition about not turning your back on them.
Oh, interesting. I wonder what that's all about.
A little mystery. All that exploring must have worked up an appetite. The food was presented on banana leaves, which acted as plates.
Oh, that's cool. Eco-friendly.
And the restaurant had this green decor, which added to that natural feel.
Nice ambience.
The biryani had egg and chicken, and the chicken rice and curry came with all these vegetarian side dishes.
Oh, wow.
They said the table was covered.
The feast.
And they loved that EGB ginger beer.
It's got to be good if it's called elephant ginger beer, right?
They ate with their hands, which was a new experience for them.
It's always fun to try new things.
And they described the food as flavorful with a nice level of spice, but not overwhelming.
Okay.
And the variety meant they could combine different things in each bite.
Sounds delicious.
They even call it Sri Lankan tapas.
Sri Lankan tapas, I like it.
And that potato dish with caramelized onion and chili.
Oh, yeah, that one caught my attention, too.
Fresh, high-quality ingredients.
You can't beat that.
And they even took away some local desserts called watala and pani walabu.
I'm going to have to look those up.
And the whole meal was only 32.94 Sri Lankan rupees.
That's a steal.
So after that satisfying meal, it was time to relax at the hotel's rooftop infinity pool.
Ah, with those ocean views.
The perfect way to unwind that refreshing cold water, the expansive view.
Sounds heavenly.
Now, their next big destination was the Lotus Tower.
The Lotus Tower.
But the foreign visitor ticket price was a bit steep at $20.
$20.
Yeah, but the tower itself sounds impressive.
In what way?
Well, the lotus flower design at the top symbolizes tradition and modernity in Sri Lanka.
That's interesting.
And the elevator ride to the observation deck was super fast.
Like how fast?
Apparently fast enough to cause a little ear pressure.
Whoa.
From the observation deck, they had panoramic views of Colombo.
What could they see?
A massive green lake train tracks the port area.
Cool.
There is a bit of haze, which affected the long-distance visibility.
Oh, too bad.
But the shiny pink glass of the tower was reflecting the sunlight.
Ooh, that's pretty.
It was an open-air observation deck, a bit breezy, but with a full 360-degree view.
Amazing.
They noted the many green spaces and the extensive railway network.
A good overview of the city.
And the Lotus Tower, being the tallest building in South Asia, is described as a beacon of harmony and joy.
I like that.
Representing Colombo's diversity and resilience.
Very cool. Classic.
Then they encountered king coconuts.
King coconut.
Those yellow-orange ones indigenous to Sri Lanka.
Okay.
They ordered 2 to taste, served without straws.
The traditional way.
The water was sweet, refreshing, and apparently more nutritious than regular coconut water.
Wow.
Perfect for staying hydrated in the market.
Definitely.
Colombo Fort had some interesting architecture.
Like what?
Well, there was the Red Mosque built in 1908, right in the heart of the market.
Okay.
And then they moved into Colombo Fort, which has layers of colonial influence.
Oh, tell me about that.
First the Portuguese, then the Dutch, and finally the British.
Wow.
The original fort walls are gone, but there are lots of British and Dutch colonial-era buildings.
Interesting.
They mentioned Cargill's building this red and white brick structure that reminded them of Manchester.
Really?
It was a department store back in the day for British residents.
I see.
And then there's Fort Railway Station, built by the British in 1908.
What style is it?
Victorian architecture with wooden ticket counters and steel beams, giving it a vintage feel.
That sounds beautiful.
They also explored Port City.
Port City.
It's this urban project reclaiming land from the Indian Ocean.
Wow, ambitious.
It's a 25-year development plan to create a kind of utopia like Dubai or Singapore.
With luxury hotels and skyscrapers?
Exactly, and a marina.
That's going to change the city dramatically.
It will. They walked on a completed bridge, enjoying the sea breeze and the views of the reclaimed land and the Colombo skyline.
A glimpse into the future.
Overall, their impressions were overwhelmingly positive.
That's great to hear.
They were blown away by the people and the hospitality.
In what way?
They described them as super friendly, helpful, genuinely curious, warm open, always smiling.
Wow.
They said they felt incredibly welcome.
The people can really make or break a rep.
Totally. And they were surprised by how clean Colombo and Kandy were.
Really?
They said there was a visible respect for the environment, which made it pleasant to walk around.
That's always a plus.
But overall, the travelers seemed really optimistic about the future of tourism in Sri Lanka. They believe it has huge potential for growth, especially as it recovers from the challenges of recent years.
It's great to hear that kind of optimism.
Isn't it? And I think they're right. Sri Lanka has so much to offer. The beaches, the national parks, the landscapes, the food, the people.
It's a winning combination.
Totally. And their final thought was this: now is probably the best time to go and visit.
I like that.
Right. So to sum up for you, our listener, Sri Lanka in 2025 sounds like an absolutely incredible travel destination.
Based on this first-hand account, yes, absolutely.
It's got beauty, it's got diversity, it's got friendly people, delicious food, and it's super affordable. While there might be some things to consider for long-term living for a vacation, it's a winner.
A real gem waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. And with that in mind, here's something for you to ponder. Based on what we've discussed today, what kind of Sri Lankan adventure do you envision for yourself? What speaks to you the most? The landscapes, the wildlife, the food, the affordability? Take some time to research those things that spark your interest and see what kind of incredible Sri Lankan journey awaits you. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time.
See you.